Way, hello. We're
Hey.
live.
Hello.
That worked. Only took 10 seconds to go live. We were starting to doubt ourselves. Good evening. I'm Mike from Avocado Lettings. As you can see on my banner, I'm joined by Chris Gray of Avocado
Hi.
Property down in Camberley. And I can point in the right direction for Sanjay because he's below me. Sanjay covers Avocado Property in Bracknell. We're here this evening to take on 3 topics and 3 topics only. We like to be a bit controversial. We like to talk the truth. So we're here to talk about overpriced family houses in the market right here, right now. We're here to talk about buy-to-let returns going on at the moment. There is a severe lack of rental properties, which is really changing the face of the buy-to-let world. And we're also going to talk about buyer demand in the mid-range of the market. So, as you can see, I've got Mr. Camberley sales, Mr. Bracknell sales, and I'm going to talk about lettings. I don't know which way it's all backwards. So we'll start on overpriced family properties. So I'm talking specifically about the 4-bedroom detached market. I'm going to throw it to Sanjay and ask him the question: why do you think, or do you think, 4-bedroom detached houses are overpriced at the moment?
So it was interesting because I'll give you a little, anyone that's watching this, a bit of a snapshot into my monthly market update. There was actually 64 properties, houses still available for sale in the RG12 postcode, which in this market seems a bit odd. So in terms of 4-bedroom detached, obviously we know we've had lots of conversations about this in last few months. Like they are absolutely in demand, and there's been a trickle up from the first time buyers going up to the 3 bedrooms, and people wanting 3 bedrooms moving into 4 bedrooms. But why do I think they're overpriced and not selling? It's just because I think a lot of sellers might be under the impression that because the market is in high demand, that they can put an extra 20, 30, 40, 50, even some ones I've seen 100 grand more on what realistically it should be. And unfortunately, what's happening is it's just sitting there. They're not getting anything. And they're thinking, well, we're in such a good market at the moment. Why is my property still for sale? And I think that's where it just comes in with a bit of honesty. And, as you both know me very well, I'm very, very brutally honest, because otherwise, you're not doing yourself any justice there. But fortunately, overpriced properties are not great at the moment.
What do you think's the driver, Sanjay? What do you think is causing there's suddenly to be a glut of properties that are 4-bedroom detached houses on the market that have been on the market for 6 or 8 weeks or longer, that we haven't seen for the last year or so?
So it's mainly going to be down to probably estate agents going in their living rooms and saying there's a massive demand for them. Let's put it on for X amount of price, even though realistically the comparable data that we all look at when we go to value houses from all of our sources is not showing that. And I've had one recently actually where I had a conversation with a seller that's been on the market about 6 months. And they're thinking, well, I'm in a 4-bed detached. I thought these were in high demand. But I said, well, let me show you some actual factual data of properties, what they're actually selling for. And it was nowhere near the asking price. And they're not even getting people around the door, which is mad. Absolute madness in this market.
Chris, what do you think? You're down just 15 miles south of us.
Yeah,
Does that ring true?
I think it does to a degree. I think it doesn't matter what market we're in, what time of year we're in. We're always going to see, and there is always going to be an element of slight sort of overpricing amongst some estate agents. And I think every estate agent can sit here and say they have taken properties on the market in the past that they have felt has been have been on the higher side. Now, me myself included. But I think in situations like that, obviously expectation management with any client is to be completely upfront and honest about it. Look, we are pushing the market. If after X number of weeks or days, even in some instances, it's not working as we anticipate it should, then a change is going to have to be made, rather than just literally going out there saying 50k, 100k over asking price just to win business, which we've got no interest in doing whatsoever because it's a waste of everyone's time, and just having a clear plan and a strategy in place. And I think demand, as we've already said, is huge for 3 and 4-bedroom detached property, particularly around Camberley and Frimley at the moment. But saying that, there are a few that have stuck, for several weeks and months. Fortunately, I can say, none of mine have, and that's just because I'm quite rigid with strategies that I put in place. I've got an average sale agreed time at the moment of 15.8 days amongst everything that I've sold since I launched back in November last year. But I think a lot of it is down to agents. There's still not enough coming on the market. That in itself pushes the prices up, and it's just making agents really, in some instances, and I'm not talking about all agents at all, because all of my competition around Camberley, are excellent estate agents, and they're good fun to go up against, but some more than others. But I think as an agent, you've just got to be completely transparent in terms of what your expectations are on price as the agent to manage your clients. And but I don't think everyone does that, is the point I'm making.
It's interesting. Maybe the blame is to be laid at the estate agent's door. Sanjay, you're putting your hand up. You want to say something? He's desperate.
So yeah, I just thought about this, but there's one other thing as well, which is absolutely paramount, is marketing. Like when you've got a really stunning 4-bedroom detached with some amazing features in it, there's so much more to play with when you come to the marketing. And obviously, that you two, especially what we focus on is heavily marketing, a property. And there's so much more. And this is why, like, I'll pull this power stat out again, but 67% of the properties that I've sold under offer completed have been on market with other agents. And it's just a case that there's so much more you can do to market it, to present that home to that potential buyer, which I just don't think is being pushed to the limit at the moment.
Okay. I should say, if you're watching this and you've got a question for any one of the three of us, please post it in the comments box. We can see them live. We will bring them onto the screen and we will have a chat about them. But overpricing, that's a topic that is absolutely massive at the moment in the higher ends of the market. Let's go down a rung to the middle range. Your run-of-the-mill 3-bed semi-type properties. Still, I imagine lots and lots selling. I've listed one in Bracknell, which I've probably had 7 viewings on this week, which just goes to show from inquiries is still really, really high. But I think, Sanjay, you've got a bit of a case study for people to have a listen to.
Yeah, so in the last 7 days, well, actually now 10 days, basically beginning of last week, we had myself and my business partner, Ed, and we had three bedroom properties in Bracknell, different parts, Birchill, Jennetts Park, and they all went under offer. We both of us did open houses on each individual property. One of them sold off market via social media. It has not touched Rightmove or Zoopla and probably won't be. But that just goes to show how the market is, especially if you market something right. Like I was saying earlier, it makes a massive, massive difference. But the demand, I think there was 17 offers in total over the 3 properties. And obviously only 3 of those got agreed. So there's still an abundance of buyers looking, proceedable buyers in good positions, no chains, some of that sold under offer, mortgages ready to go. So that's the Bracknell market anyway for the moment for 3-bedroom houses.
Yeah, I think it's the same over here as well. There's just not enough of them. In fact, to be fair, I think the last 2 that I sold both went over the asking price within literally about 3 days. So I think it's probably the same for most agents everywhere at the moment. I think that's the cannon fodder for the market. Not downplaying it, because obviously every instruction is important, but I think that's the cannon fodder for estate agents at the moment, is the 3-bedroom terrace semis and detached as well. But they're always in demand, and more so now than ever.
And if you're a seller of one of these property, who's buying them and who's looking?
First-time buyers. There's a lot of first-time buyers at the moment. I mean, if your average, certainly around here, your average price for a 3-bedroom terrace and semi is between sort of 350 and 400 on average. Some more, some a bit less. It is first-time buyer territory, and second-time and third-time buyer territory as well at the moment. And I'd say probably the majority of, actually, no, all of the ones that I've sold the last couple of months have all been sold to chain-free buyers, but it's a mixture of first-time buyers and second-time sellers on my side anyway. Okay,
right. Here's my topic. I've got a case study for you guys. As you know, I'm based predominantly, if I can say it, in Bracknell. This week, one of my buy-to-let landlords has completed on a standard ex-authority Bracknell house, paid £339,000 for it, which now 3 months after he agreed the deal looks like very good value for money. First viewings this week after he's had a painter and decorator in there. The property is rented for £1,660 a month on an investment of £339,000. Now, here's where the numbers come into it. On the basis, I don't know his financial situation, but on the basis he's put down a 25% deposit and add his costs on, he's invested around about £100,000 into that property, which would require a mortgage of about 250, just for base level maths. Mortgage rates on a buy-to-let on 25% are around about 1.5%, which mean on an interest-only mortgage, that landlord is paying less than £350 a month mortgage, earning £1,660 per month rental. So a clear profit of £1,300 before maintenance, before tax, before insurance, etc., etc. So probably, in fairness, clearing £1,000 a month profit for his £100,000 investment, which in turn, if you're still following me, is around about 12% return on his cash. Is it the best time you have ever seen for buy-to-let investors?
Nah. No, it's awesome, isn't it?
This is quite interesting because I had an investor on the phone to me the other day. They were like, Sanjay, the prices are going mad at the moment for 3-bedroom houses. You know, we're paying well over the odds. So is it a good time to invest? That question in itself and that answer and explanation you just gave is a prime example where even in the big market, in the bubble market that we are in like right now, it's still a good time because the return on the back end of that is still there. And yeah, so it's interesting. That's very, very interesting. When you look at HMOs, for example, if you don't know what HMOs are, house of multiple occupancy, a lot of investors do that, and you know they do get big returns on it. But with a 3-bedroom, which is a solid purchase, plus the 10 years time, whatever that's worth, not a bad investment at all.
Yeah. I mean, it was probably a £200,000 house 10 to 15 years ago, and it's gone up 60-70% in value. Yes, it would be nicer to buy it 10 or 15 years ago, but 10 or 15 years ago, you'd also been paying 6% interest, not 1.5%. So I think a lot of people get caught up in, isn't it expensive? Isn't it a high price? Because of what they bought their first ever property for. That's the standard story I hear. Well, I paid £78,000 for my first property, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. The key really is that the game has changed. It used to be cheap price, high interest level. Now it's high price, low interest level. And amazingly, for a first time buyer, now you're actually paying a lower proportion of your disposable income on a mortgage than you would have been 15 or 20 years ago. So you could argue it's become comparatively cheaper to buy and own a house than it was 20 years ago.
So then, Mike, here's a question for you. What's your predictions for if you were an investment or speaking to a landlord or an investor who's thinking about doing a first buy-to-let? What's your predictions on the mortgage? Because obviously this is factored in via the cheap mortgage rates that people are getting at the moment and the high returns on the rental. What's your predictions over the next 6 to 12, even 3 years? Because obviously from a landlord's perspective, it's not a short-term investment. It's going to be a long-term investment. I know you haven't got a crystal ball, but give me your thoughts.
I'll do what I can to find one. Over 3 years, who knows? Short term, I can only look at the last 12 to 18 months. Mortgage rates have been falling. Every week that we get an email from Uncle Dave, our mortgage broker, every week he's got a new lowest rate, and they just fall and they fall and they fall. It's incredible. How long that keeps going for, whether we get down to almost 0% interest, we will see. But right here, right now, if I was buying a buy-to-let property, I wouldn't be scared of buying that property and fixing the rate for 5, maybe 10 years. Because if you're paying £350 a month on your mortgage and you've got income of £1,500 plus, even if the rate does drop, even if it halves, it'll only go from 350 down to 180. That's only 150, 200 pounds better off. You're already in a win-win position. So I would personally, I'm not a mortgage broker. I can't give mortgage advice. I can only say what I would do in the position. I would just fix it and fix it long, because I know I'm making profit, and I know if I fix it for a long term, no one can stop me from doing that.
Yeah. What about the flat market? Because I've seen Tristan, obviously your business partner, he's posting a lot of just recently let within 3 days, recently let within 4 days, multiple offers.
Yep.
Like, what about the flat market? What's going on there?
Yeah, it's still busy. There's not enough, just generally across the board, there's not enough available. I think people are being quite specific with flats. We rented a maisonette in Bracknell yesterday, and we had 3 viewings, 3 people offer full asking price. And it was interesting. 2 of them said, I'll rent this flat because there are windows on both sides, and this place will be really nicely ventilated and it will keep cool, because they've both been living in different flats where they were south facing, big balcony doors, super modern, and they'd cooked in the last 3 months because it'd been so hot in there. So sometimes it's about the type of property. It doesn't have to be super modern, doesn't have to be amazing. You know, this particular one was a 1960s build, so it was nothing to write home about from the outside, but it was practical. So no problems at all in the flat market. There's still more people than there are property. It blows your mind to see the amount of inquiries that come through when you list a flat or a house for rent right now.
In terms of Mike, in terms of your areas, here's a question for you. Obviously, amongst our network, obviously, which is now 22 partners, obviously, essentially you're covering pretty much that whole area at the moment. Have you got where would you say is probably the most or the best sort of area to look at? Obviously, we all know our own patches and stuff, and here's a great place in Camberley or Frimley or whatever, or Bracknell to look at. But is there somewhere where you would say is more of a hotspot than others at the moment?
I think because whilst like as you say, we're 20 odd people strong, we cover relatively similar towns. And regardless of whether we list something on the outskirts of Reading, or Bracknell, or Basingstoke, or Camberley, the story from tenants seems to be the same. There's a lot of people who are moving out of the London suburbs where they're in flats that are incredibly expensive, and it means they can get a 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom house for their money. There's a lot of people who purely are now working from home, who didn't used to work from home and just need more space. Just like when you're selling houses, the race for space is exactly what people are after. They need somewhere to put a desk. They need somewhere with fast internet. They need somewhere which is clean, cool, and comfortable. So I wouldn't say one town over another town or one suburb over another suburb. It's purely down to, it's people driven of what they want and what they need, just like with house sales at the moment.
I do.
Can we just touch on the apartment market before we finish off? Because Chris, I remember having a conversation with you probably about a month or so ago, and we both had a few apartments on the market, and they were sort of not getting nothing in terms of inquiries, but then all of a sudden a week later you were like, yeah, they're all sold. We've all found a buyer, and I had a similar experience as well. So I don't know how you're finding it over there, because there's a lot of people probably watched or going to watch this that are on the market. As we all know, there's a lot of apartments on the market at the moment still. But yeah, how are you finding it?
Quite similar. I mean, there's not been huge amounts of apartments coming on since you and I had that conversation. However, what I have seen is I've seen increasing levels of down valuations on apartments at the moment, particularly the last week. One of which happened yesterday. Another abortive sale on one, but again, to be fair, it resold within a matter of days. So selling still isn't the problem. But I don't know whether or not surveyors are being a little bit overcautious at the moment, particularly towards the sort of lower sector of the market, around the sort of 200 grand mark. But selling, as always, isn't the problem. I listed one in Farnborough the other day. Cracking ground floor apartment with a garden and a garage, sold to the first person who saw it for great money as well. And that one won't be an issue, touch wood. But then other ones, I think it's a bit of a it's you just can't expect. I can't predict it at the moment. So I'm stuttering my words, but I've got one apartment. It's been on for a little bit longer than I anticipated, and it's one of the best ones I've had this year, but hasn't sold yet. So we've made an adjustment. It will now sell. It's got viewings this weekend. So I just think whether or not surveyors are being a little bit more, whether this is a sign of things to come, I don't know. But I would say from my experience, there's not been huge amounts of apartments coming on since we had that chat a month ago. But to be fair, I've got one left.
Nice. Yeah.
What about you, though?
Yeah, I think since we've had that conversation, I've had a few go under offer because I had quite a few at one point. I think I had about 5 or 6 for sale, and then sort of 50% of them sold within a week, which was like, well, where's all these buyers come from? And now all of a sudden, I'm getting a lot more interest on the ones that are remaining. Like I've got, and also investors that are going to view as well, which is an interesting sides to it as well. So, but I've definitely seen an increase in buyers. Maybe it's because we're slowly going back to normal. The first time buyers that could afford, the 200 can now afford the 220, 230s, which is in the Bracknell market. You still get a good apartment for that. So there's definitely it's positive, put it that way. It's definitely positive, but it needs to be drilled home a little bit more, I think.
So put you guys on the spot. One tip for buyers, one tip for sellers. Chris.
One tip for buyers, as always, before you head out there, get your finances sorted out, get your mortgage sorted out, know exactly what you can afford. Don't go out thinking, I like the look of this, I'll offer this, and then go and get your mortgage because you might be disappointed. So 100% get your mortgage sorted out. As far as sellers go, at the valuation stage, listen and ask for comparable evidence of other properties that an agent has sold, or other properties in the wider market that have sold. Don't compare to stuff that's on the market. Its price hasn't been agreed yet. Look at the stuff that has sold and what prices they have sold off the back of. I think that's becoming more and more important at the moment.
Nice.
Sanjay, bigger challenge now. Someone else has used up 2 key ones.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, tip for buyers. Give you an example. With all of these open houses myself and Ella did last week, I now know when I have a conversation with 30 buyers that might have inquired for one property, there's a couple of buyers that stick out. And here's the reason why. It's because they come to me and they be very transparent with their whole situation, how long they've been looking, what deposit they're putting down, what agreement in principle they've got, who they've spoken to. They've got solicitors instructed, ready to go. Those buyers in this kind of market, if you're looking for a 2 or 3 bedroom house, which are still popular, they will put you at the forefront of estate agents' minds when new properties come up and off-market sales happen. So a big tip there for buyers. For sellers, I kind of echo what Chris has said, but for me, it's apart from that, presentation. Invest a little bit of money into your property before you go to market. One of my sellers recently, we had an open house last week, invested £4,000 in their property, decorated it from top to bottom. We got them over asking price, their investment gone back in their pocket. And we had a lot of buyers view on that day and 4 offers. So it makes a massive difference. Fall back in love with your home. That's my tip for sellers before you go to market.
I think that's massive, absolutely massive. If you don't love your house, why would you expect anyone else to?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
That's a huge thing. £4,000 is probably more than most people would look at. I've got to say, last time I sold a property, which was a couple of years ago now, I changed all the carpets, had the whole place painted, and I got the asking price in 3 or 4 days. So it does go to show. I'd advertised it with a tenant in situ at the time, didn't get a sniff, took it off the market for 2 weeks, painted it, decorated it, new carpets, sold in 4 days. So proof's in the pudding that was a few years ago, still true.
What about you?
I've been challenged.
Oh.
I didn't get away with that one. What's my tip for tenants to get to the front of the queue? Be personable with the letting agent so they know who you are and they are confident to put you forward as the preferred option. As I said, last property I rented yesterday, 3 offers. The one before that, 2 offers. Pretty much every property, it's gone from saying, I'll take that property to, can I apply to rent this property, please? Which happens in other countries. You go and make an application to rent a property. So be ready, understand know what the referencing criteria is. If there's an issue with your referencing criteria, like being self-employed, or like having bad credit history, or like earning slightly lower than the thresholds, understand what that is and find a way to overcome that objection on behalf of the agent, so they can confidently put you forward to their landlord. That's what I would say.
Very good. Very good.
Okay, nearing 6:30. I've enjoyed it. I hope the people watching have done. Guys,
all good. Thank you very much for having us.
As always.
Hope you have a good dinner. Fish fingers and chips.
Chicken nuggets more so.
Speak soon. All
Cheers.
the best.
All
Have a
right.
good evening.
Take care.